Ballot integrity lies at the heart of Nigeria's democratic process, yet it remains an enduring challenge that shapes the nation's political landscape. This concept has become increasingly complex due to systemic changes that undermine electoral credibility. Kimpact Development Initiative, in collaboration with FCDO, organized the public presentation of Edo and Ondo election ballot integrity report, which detailed assessment of the electoral process and, most importantly, election results management, analysis based on current research and current electoral experiences. Stakeholders and speakers at the event lend their voices to the theme of the day.
In this country, the problem is we've had an institution that on its own struggles with a transparency issue, and then a political class that understands these weaknesses and is willing to impose themselves during elections.
Well, I've not really looked at the report itself because we've just been defending the case. But I think those inconsistencies should be taken in the context of the totality. Elections are very, very complex events to organize. And because they are very, very complex, you can find mistakes here and there. We are all human beings. So human error cannot be ruled out. Now the question is, a specific human error, is it deliberate or is it not deliberate? So I cannot, but the point I want to make out is that you cannot go to do such a large exercise without having some inconsistencies in numbers and so on and so forth. And that is why the new law, for example, makes it possible for INEC to review results declared within 7 days. That is the first thing I want to say. The second thing is that the jurisprudence of elections in the British Commonwealth, former British Commonwealth of Nations, Canada, for example, Kenya, so on and so forth, and Nigeria, talk of substantial compliance. So even though the question then comes, to what extent have the errors affected?
In Nigeria, we have been struggling with credibility of elections in the last several years. I think 2019 was a warning sign that elections in Nigeria was beginning to deteriorate, and 2023 was the defining point for all of us about our elections, taking us back to 2007 when we all knew that it had collapsed, and we raised our voices, which led to the creation of the Electoral Reform Committee headed by Justice Mohammed Lawal Bewist. That committee made several recommendations about improving the electoral process, and that was what led to several of the recommendations of that committee being implemented. One of the members of that committee, Professor Atahiru Jega, was appointed chairman of the commission, INEC. We saw improved elections in 2011, to the point that the Nigeria society situation was in constant conversation with INEC. And indeed, on election day, when it was quite clear that that particular election on April 2nd of 2011 had serious challenges, we got reports from observers of the field, we engaged with INEC, and INEC was able to quickly act on the report that the situation was presented to it. Since then, of course, it has meant that even though we've been engaged with the election management body, things have not worked as well. Of course, we've been
like I've said, is a project that will deploy, an initiative deployed for the Edo and Ondo governorship election, which is aimed to provide an empirical examination of the electoral integrity through advanced statistical method such as cluster distinction, cumulative vote analysis, and Benford law, using it to look at the results declared by INEC. Of course, we have done this in various elections, most especially Kogi, Igbo, Bayelsa, and I'm sure the reports of those ones are also on our website for anybody that may be interested to see the pattern and the trajectory at which we have been coming from. Okay, so basically today I am going to look into the polling units. We are going to look the data set we look at that we arrive at is the polling unit level result for all political parties, and then we look at the turnout percentages by polling units, and then we also look at the historical data for comparative analysis. So what did we do under this historical data was to write to INEC officially and get the results of, and get data, most especially registered voter and some other data that for 2020 election for both states, so that we can compare with the 2024, and then now you recall that the IREF and the BVAS was used for the IREF was used for the first time for governorship election in 2020, most especially in Edo and Ondo. So we also have to get those data, download the data, and now compare with what we have in 2020. If there are trends, if there are patterns, and then if there are improvements. And so basically, my presentation is going to look into that. However, there are limitations, just let me say that, but those limitations, more of it, I'm just going to mention 3, but more of the limitations are contained in the report. Number 1 is that the data we use for this analysis are 100% sourced from the IREF portal. Within if you look at that number 3, within that time frame at which they were uploaded. So anything outside this time frame, for instance, I talked about the week of the 21st of September, and then the week of the 16th of September for Ondo, the 21st of September for Edo. So when they were uploaded, and that was where we look at it. So, but again,
Mohammed Jinadu, Voicetv Nigeria.